Welcome to my new tutorial on yet another placket called the wrap and projection placket. This is a placket which we often see in women's sari blouses. And if you look and compare it with an even hem placket, there are no fasteners visible, means there are no buttons visible. And the opening of the placket, that is the edge of the placket, is exactly on the center front. The fasteners are hidden under it. They are not of prominence. While in even hem placket, the fastener was of prominence and the fastener was placed on the center front or center back line. This is a beautifully centralized placket. That means the edge of the placket really lies in the center of the body, and the two pieces, the left and right piece, are equally visible to the observer. It hides the fasteners under it, and therefore you could obtain a very clean look using a wrap and projection placket. Usually in the sari blouse we find that the fastener that has been used is a hook and eye, which is a fastener which works under stress. That means there is a pull from both sides, and that is the premise on which a hook and an eye work. Now let us see what we should do to learn the wrap and projection placket. First thing we need to know is that what is the ready size of our sample. We are working on a 15 centimeter by 15 centimeter sample size. Now to get a ready sample of 15 by 15, we will have to do some planning. Planning in terms of adding the seam allowances, so that after construction, after closure, the placket is now forming the sample size to be at 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters. So here is a plan for cutting the sample fabric. You have to cut two pieces. Because it's 15 centimeter length and 15 centimeter width, 15 centimeter length will be maintained, but in width the placket has to be applied on two pieces. So 15 will have to be divided by 2. Each piece becomes 7.5 centimeter. And each piece, because it's going to receive a placket piece on top of it, it's going to have a seam allowance additional on both sides, 1 centimeter on each side. So the two pieces that we are cutting will be 15 centimeter by 8.5 centimeter, and we will mark seam allowance 1 centimeter from the edge. Remember that the length of the sample is going to be on straight grain of fabric, that means parallel to sellage. Then there are two placket pieces being attached in the wrap and projection placket. These two placket pieces are of different sizes. The left side is different from the right side. The projection in this placket, as the name shows here, is on the left side, and the wrap or the fold is on the right side. So the two placket pieces, their dimensions should be 15 centimeter by 7 centimeter width, and we will see in the diagrams coming ahead why it is 7 centimeters. The second placket piece is 15 centimeters by 4.5 centimeters. So two pieces of 15 by 8.5 centimeter as the face fabric, and two pieces of placket pieces which is 15 centimeter by 7.7 centimeter, and another piece 15 centimeter by 4.5 centimeter. And remember, it's quite emphasized here as well, the length direction of all four pieces should be taken along the straight grain. We all know by now what straight grain of fabric means. So here is a diagrammatic explanation of the sample pieces that we are going to cut. We work on the wrong side. One is the left side and one is the right side. On both sides, seam allowance of 1 centimeter has been added, which is going to get consumed in stitching up the placket pieces. The lengthwise direction is in straight grain on both the sides, and that's about it for this plan. The next plan is that for the placket pieces, the width of placket piece has to be decided depending on which side the placket piece is going to be applied. So the placket piece which is applied on the left side is what forms the projection. If I was to compare here the even hem placket and the wrap and projection placket, the projections on both sides, we had called them extension over there. The extension on both sides was equally provided, and therefore the overlap of the placket was evenly distributed on both sides of the center front or center back. But in this case, the projection is supplied only from the left side and the right side does not have any extension. That means the entire overlap of the placket is planned by the left side. In our current scenario sample, we are going to use a placket width of 2.5 centimeters. And because this is always a double piece, remember placket is always a double piece. So it will be on fold. You will take it fold lengthwise fold here. So it will be 2.5 centimeter plus 2.5 centimeter plus 1 centimeter allowance on this side and plus 1 centimeter allowance on this side, and that results in the 7 centimeters which we had talked of as a sample placket piece width of 15 by 7.5 centimeters. The second piece, the right side piece, is less wide because it does not have a projection. It is only going to give a wrap or an inside fold of fabric which will be ready in size as 2.5 centimeter. This will also have a seam allowance of 1 centimeter on either side. In the wrap and projection placket, there is a possibility that this placket piece need not be cut. Means this can be planned along with the face of the fabric, along with the face fabric sample piece also, or in a garment if we could provide extra 2.5 plus 1 from the center front, 2.5 plus 1, 3.5 centimeters extra from the center front on the right side, then we do not need to apply this placket piece. However, the difficulty in including this placket within the garment is that it requires a left and right planning separately of the two pieces. It's always more convenient to cut the left and right of the body in one go. In such a case, the right side would have the placket in it and the left side would not have the placket in it. So it's always easier to apply the two pieces on both sides and cut our face fabric or the fashion fabric or the garment fabric in one go on left and right side. Let us see how it looks like once we have finished it. Here is a diagram of a finished placket pieces, sample pieces. So now I'm showing you the right side, and this is not the wrong side. The earlier work was all being done because it was seam allowances being marked, so it was all on wrong side. Now we are showing the sample as it would be on the right side. So this is the left side and this is the right side. On the left side, you can see this whole projection is there of 2.5 centimeter. This is a double layer of fabric. It is folded here and it is folded here. So it's like a belt attachment. It is completely an extension stitched over the 1 centimeter that we had provided in our sample piece. Similarly, on the right side, the wrap projection, the wrap area was much smaller. You see it was 2.5 plus 1 centimeter plus 1 centimeter, and now that 1 centimeter has got folded here and folded here, it's got stitched here, and this is either a hemming stitch done or machine row stitching done here, and you get a ready size of 2.5 centimeter. This is going to overlap onto this side. This piece will overlap over here, and this is what is going to be common. So the center front marked here and the center front marked here will coincide, and the placket extension you can see is being provided only from the left side. We will see now how we are going to actually cut on fabric and then stitch the sample. We could do the entire work on paper first and then cut our fabric. But we could also work directly on fabric. It's not very difficult. These are just straight lines, so working on the fabric should not be difficult. This is the straight grain of fabric because it's along the selvage. We are going to mark 15 centimeters in length and I'm not going to include the selvage in it. So I will remove this fabric and I'm going to mark 8.5 centimeters in width. You could do this using a square so that your 90 degrees is perfectly maintained. I could take this on a fold and then cut it. Okay, so I'm first going to cut along the line here so that I don't have the selvage to deal with. I'm removing the selvage. Take as long strokes as you can with your scissor so that the cutting is neat and tidy. I could fold this here along the straight grain that I have marked, you can see, and now I will get two pieces together. Two pieces of 8.5 centimeter by 15 centimeter. So right now I'm just removing this. The two pieces are cut and we're going to pin them together to mark our seam allowances on both sides. We pin it so that the fabric does not slip. We could take 1 centimeter. Remember, we have already included that in our measurements. We had called this the wrong side, and one of them will become the right and the other will become a left. Now I have to transfer this line onto this side. I have two choices. One, I could use a carbon paper. One, I could use a tracing wheel. And the one I really like is using a little notch here and a little notch here, which brings the two pieces. I get the notch on this side and I will be able to mark my line. So the two sides have their seam allowances. Both have the wrong side marked on it because the seam line is only marked on the wrong side. Like that. We could call one side the right side and the other the left. So I would say once it is stitched, this is the right side and this is the left side. Usually it is left and right in wearing, how we wear it. So if it is in the front, please plan the placket accordingly. If it is in the back, plan the placket accordingly. Now we are going to attach the placket pieces. First, we will cut the placket piece. While the requirement of the two placket pieces is separate from one another, one thing common in them is the length. So if we mark 15 centimeters in our length, this is the length, this is the straight grain. So 15 centimeters in length. Maybe I should put it up like this for everyone else to be able to relate to the length of the garment, length of the sample. And I need 7 centimeters for one and 4.5 for the other. So if I cut it at 11.5 centimeters, I'm going to get the two pieces with the same width. I will just cut them at their required lines. So how much was it? 11.5 on both ends. These are some of the practical aspects, even though planning was separately, but we need not really cut one piece, mark one piece, cut one piece. We need not really do that. We could simplify our work in the practical situations. However, planning has to be done individually. The 2 placket pieces are cut. I am now marking 1 centimeter of seam allowance on each side. If you look at this scale, this is a grid scale. This is divided into inches, and this is 1/8 of an inch on each within each inch, and this is a square of 1 inch. Again, it's divided 1/8 inch. Here is a centimeter scale, and the first line is 1 centimeter away, and these are centimeter divisions. Using such scales always make our life easier while doing pattern making work. So I need 1 centimeter allowance here. See, I don't have to measure it with a small scale, 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter. The scale itself helps me in doing it. I get a ready width of 2.5 centimeter. You can see here, 2.5 centimeter. So the 2 placket pieces are ready along with the 2 sample size pieces. So we have the pieces which are going to fit one over the other. So we know that one is left, one is right. This is the right side, and so is this the right side. This is the left side, and so is this is the left piece. We know that the left piece is wider and the right side piece is narrower. Now this is going to be applied. We always do an application with plain seam. So using a plain seam, we are going to attach the left and the right side. We'll start with the right side first. In a plain seam, it's always the right side or the face side of the fabric, the outer side. If it is printed, it's very easy to identify. When it's not printed, that the sides that we mark are seam lines is the wrong side, and the other one is the right side. So these are the right sides. Remember, in the videos for plain seam, that it's the right sides which face one another. So we place the placket piece over the sample piece and make sure that the seam lines coincide, and you can pin it up. You pin it up in 2 places and make sure it's correctly done. Now, I have pinned up along the seam line. The disadvantage of pinning along the seam line like this is that when you start machining from here, it's a little bit difficult to remove it. So while this is great for explanation that I can show you that this is how it's going to look, but in practicality when you're sitting on the sewing machine, it's always better to pin it like this. Because when you start machining with your right hand, you will be able to remove the pins. And the purpose is the same. It's still holding the fabric. The idea of putting pins is that you should not stretch any one side and the seam should turn out even. But if I place it like this, I can't explain and I can't show you this side. So lots of times in the demonstrations, I will be using pins in this direction. However, while working on the sewing machine, this is the direction that you should be taking. Similarly, for the left side, you're going to use the right sides facing one another. So this is the left, this is the right here, this is the wrong side, and this is the right side. So I'm going to place the right sides facing one another. In this I have not written its right side. We write RS. I'm sorry, on the earlier I wrote RT. So we write RS, that is the right side. And facing the right sides together, we put the two one over the other with seam allowance line, the seam line coinciding. Again, we are going to pin it up, and while we pin it, we must check on the other side, is it correctly on the line? Otherwise, our fitting size is going to change. It will turn out either bigger than 15 centimeters or less than 15 centimeters. Make sure it coincides like this. And we are going to stitch over this. We could do basting, that is hand basting. We could just use a needle and thread and run through this. When it is a temporary stitch, we know that we could use knotting at the end, and we could just, because it's a temporary stitch, it's going to be taken out. So we can just do a little bit of running stitch, basting stitch here, not running stitch. And with basting, we will make sure that the whole seam is in place and its tensions are all in, controlled. And when we sit on the sewing machine to stitch our work, not that one fabric stretches and the other becomes shorter. So the best way for beginners is to baste, that is what we say a temporary stitch, which we are going to remove once this work is done with sewing machine stitching. Right now I'm only basting. I will show you the result of the placket with just basting, and then we will go around machining it also. It's not very fine stitch that we need to use, because we are just putting the two fabrics together, and the purpose is just to hold the two fabrics and make it easy for us to work on the sewing machine. So the machine stitching will become a little bit easy, and we will proceed faster. We won't have to do any adjustments at the time we are at the machine. Otherwise, you'll have to control the two sample pieces separately. Yes, but once you're adapted it and you're you have command on your sewing machine, you can skip the hand basting step. However, pinning is still recommended. I still use pinning because it helps me to get a clean seam. So now I can show you, because I've done the hand stitching, I can show you what it's going to look like. So this is the right sides together. This is our right of the fabric, garment, right of the garment. And so this wrap is completely going to go inside. See this? And this will get folded 1 centimeter. We should use the iron. I'm going to use the iron and then fold it inside. However, there is yet another step which I will show on the sewing machine just now. So this is going to be the wrap side, which is the right side of the garment in wearing. And here is the extension, placket extension that we have, what we call as the projection. We are folding the seam allowance all towards the projection. We fold this seam allowance also. I'm going to iron it just now and then place it exactly over my seam line and machine stitch. Now I have two choices of machine stitching. One is that I could stitch it like over machining, like top stitched, and both pieces will get caught. Or I could do groove machining. There are two kinds of stitchings that we can use. Groove machining means we will be stitching in the groove of the previous seam. It will catch 3 layers of fabric, the fabric here and the placket piece, 2 layers, that is the seam allowance and the placket piece. It catches 3 layers and the seam gets sort of lost or hidden in the groove here. Or we could do top stitching, which will catch 4 layers, 1 second of the seam allowance. 5 layers, if we see 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, which will catch 5 layers and show a machine stitching over here. Both are acceptable, neither is wrong. We will start with stitching the right side of the placket first, and we must do a secure stitching. So I will take 2 stitches backwards so that my ends are secure. And I'm purposely using a slightly different color thread so that it's visible, the seam is visible, even though it's going to show my own flaws in the seam, but all the same, the idea is to be able to teach you better. Again, once when I reach the end, I'm going to do 2 stitches backwards so that the end doesn't open up. The next we will work on the left side of the placket piece. We will do 2 back stitches again so that we secure the end of the seam. Any seam should be secured, because otherwise what will happen is like it will start opening up. So we must again 2 stitches backwards. Now that our 2 seams are done, we could clip off these threads and make sure that the seam is neat and clean. We are going to fold it like this. You can do a hand pressing with your nails like this so that your seam is clean, and then you're going to press it here. You could use the iron, that would be a good idea. Lots of times it's not possible to just hand work, especially when you're using a polycot or something. Then you're going to require the fold to be done with an ironing. Now we need to do a over machining here so that the 2 seam allowances and the 3rd layer of the placket piece gets sewn together. Now that is called top stitching, but actually it's under machining. So you can see this is going to go down inside, so it will be referred to as under machining. Similarly, on this piece, on the left side piece, you will make a hand nail press like this. You will nail press the seam, the allowance, the fold allowance, or best to use an iron and pin it up like this. When you pin this, you must make sure that the pin is holding the underlayer. That means I would want 1 millimeter of this to be extended beyond the seam line, just 1 millimeter, so that when I make a seam here, it should get caught. It should get caught, it should not get left out. Okay, sorry, this is not showing at all. So that it gets caught like this. So I'm going to just do the seaming and show it to you. Both sides are done. We could just clip off and clean it up. And now we are going to use the hemming stitch to finish our right side of the wrap side of the placket. You will start with a double back stitch. You already learned how to do a double back stitch. I normally go inside this and hold it like this. Take it as much as possible and do one small stitch here, and you can go back into that stitch so that it becomes secure here. It's not pulling out. See, I'm tugging it, it's not pulling out. And then is a fine hemming stitch. The finer your needle is, the better it will be, because you'll be able to form fine small stitches. So you should just take 1 to 2 yarns on the underside and a very small pinch over here. If you can see it, it's a very small pinch, yet it has got caught. So you already know the hemming stitch. I'm holding it like really a bit awkwardly for the camera, but I hope I'm able to do a good job on this. And you can see it on this side that hardly the stitch is visible. I'm using a blue colored thread, even that is not visible because it's been so finely taken here, so fine over here. So we are going to complete this totally. I'm not doing it on camera right now, and our second side is complete. Once this is done, then let's see how it looks. The 2 seams have been done. This is finished here. This one is finished too, with the fold on the underside, and the placket is openable like this. You can see the whole placket is openable like this. The width of the placket in 2 pieces, the fold over here and the edge over here are the same, and the 2 are equal. The left and the right side are equal to one another, and this is central. We can even check that out. We could just see here, place it like this, and see that the 2 sides are absolutely equal when taken here. So the wrap, this is the wrap side, right side, and this is the projection side. So it opens up like this. This is how the placket will open up, and there are going to be fasteners in it. When we learn fasteners, we will see how to apply a fastener on top of this. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed it, do like and subscribe. I will be coming with many more videos on construction techniques for apparel design.